personally, like one of the things that I use is I use these strips. I don't know if you've seen these strips. So this is a load of laundry right here. It seems like more products should be going in that direction, right? Where instead of having like a gigantic pump bottle of soap in the shower, it's like this plus makes sense. It's like, where else can we apply these? And not just does it solve for the product, but then obviously the packaging comes down. And then the fact that you've got this dissolvable sachet for Plus, it almost like lifts that responsibility from them. Because I'd love to talk about what the future of packaging is going to be from your perspective. Daniel, so thanks so much for joining us. I've got Daniel Lowe, and you're the founder of Someone and Others. It's really good to catch up with you. You're an Arizona native. You went to Phoenix Country Day School, and then you left to LA. You traveled the world, and then last week you're here in Arizona for the Suns game. So first, how was the Suns game? And second, what's it like being back in that size of a crowd? Was that your first time being back in a big crowd like that?
So first of all, since 1992, my dad introduced me to basketball, which was also happened to be the last time the Suns went to the finals. And so I have been a fan that has had heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak for about 28 years. And I was not going to miss the opportunity to go to a finals game. So being in the arena was incredible. And it was as loud as it sounds on TV, but maybe louder. It was something that I'll never forget, which is awesome. And I was lucky enough to go to the Diamondbacks World Series, which was awesome. I didn't go to the game that they won, they won the game, but it wasn't the World Series winning game. I couldn't miss this out. So, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from LA. So I came back. I'd say the more shocking part was that I haven't been in 115, 118 degree weather in like 10 years. And so it's weird when you get out of the car and your body starts to bake. So that was an interesting one. And this actually wasn't the last time or the first time that I had been in such a big crowd, because I went to the Western Conference Finals here in LA. And that was actually a really cool experience because there were so many Suns fans at an LA game, which was interesting because usually you feel like you're the oddball out when you go to a game that's not in your state. But there were a ton of Suns fans. There were more masks in LA than in Phoenix. So that was like a little bit of a shocker because there are definitely a lot less masks there. You kind of have to rip the Band-Aid off at some point. So I basically ripped the Band-Aid off real quick twice. It's weird. It's definitely weird being in that big of an audience. And it's weird because then as soon as you forget what's going on. And then as soon as you leave that, you'll be driving down the street and you'll see 10 people standing on a corner without masks on here in LA. And you're like, what's going on? But I was also just with 18,000 people that didn't have masks on. So a little hypocritical in your thoughts, but you kind of forget that for a minute. But it was definitely an enjoyable experience for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. You saw that orange Bronco?
I do. So I have a Phoenix Suns orange Bronco. It's been in storage for about a year because I went electric, so I can't burn 8 miles per gallon anymore. That's just so bad for the world and for the environment. Hopefully I'll save up enough to convert it to electric one day, or I'll sell it, whichever comes first.
Awesome, man. So, all right. So Daniel, you and I met, I think about 8 years ago. We met in LA. You were working for Violet Grey, a cosmetics company there. We were collaborating on some projects and stayed in touch since then. Can you give just a quick rundown of who you are and what you've been working on? And really what I'd love to do is describe your work to someone that maybe is just meeting you for the first time before we kind of jump into the rest of this. Because I'd love to talk about what the future of packaging is going to be from your perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I originally started out my career in New York, was working mainly in the digital space because I felt that print medium was a bit of a dying medium at the time. So I wanted to get into the digital space. And so did a lot of mass commerce fashion sites, stuff like Converse.com, Nautica, Kipling. And then I moved out to here to LA because I kind of missed the sun a little bit. So I wanted the sun, but I didn't want as hot as Arizona. So I came to LA, freelance for a while here with a few companies doing more mass commerce sites. So like Oakley, Theory, Levi's, Gymboree, Life is Good, stuff like that. And then I got a job at Violet Grey, which is the exact opposite of that. So it's super high, all of that was mass commerce. And then Violet Grey was super high end beauty, old guard, Hollywood, content and commerce, mixing them together. And so then that's where we met. And what I was doing at Violet Grey was a little bit of everything because it was a really small team. It was my first time working for a startup. You get pretty scrappy, especially when you're like the only creative there for a while. And so it was doing the website, was doing packaging. We had a brick and mortar store. So it was doing retail packaging, was doing pretty much everything that like went through a Photoshop or an Illustrator or, any sort of a design program was touching my computer and I was working on. So did that for a while. And then I think when you and I started working together, that was on the shipping experience. At that time, it was how do you bring an Hermes store into a brown box and how do you do a Tiffany's box inside of a brown box, like stuff like that. And so we were working on trying to have that elegant experience, and then did a couple other like freelance type of things after I left Violet Grey. And then I started Someone and Others a little over 3 years ago. And I started it really to work with at the time, niche beauty brands. And so like these small beauty brands that are wanting to really like have cohesive, great branding across all of the touch point. And they don't have necessarily like the ability to have a full creative team. And so then I come in as a creative arm to help them out. And then as their needs grow and as I get to capacity, then I naturally grow with them. And so organically have grown the company over the last 3 years. We work with a lot of D2C brands. We worked on one called Starface for like the last 2.5 years. Did everything from brand, literally they had a logo when we started. So we did branding, packaging, emails, website, ads, social, retail experience, etc. And that's somewhat of a Gen Z darling. And so from there, have worked with a lot of like Gen Z brands, bright, colorful, fun, energetic, and also like from a different perspective than that Violet Grey perspective, because they're younger. They also see the world, the effects of what have happened to the world because of pollution, global warming, etc. And like you have to basically change your perspective on design because they can read through the garbage and they can read through like what you're putting out there.
All right. So we go from full digital in New York to continuing digital in LA and then moving into packaging and just pretty much tackling everything. So at this point, as I go through the Someone and Others website, there's a few things. One, essentially you're a full service agency, but I can't, do you call yourself a full service agency?
We call ourselves like a brand building studio. I've never really liked the word agency because it's scary and it's like big and it's daunting. Whereas like a studio and like, especially like I think a studio fits us better than the word a shop, because like shop feels like they're more specialized in one thing. Whereas like what we like to do is we like to come up with solutions for whatever the client or problems are. And we like to tell great brand stories. And I really consider us storytellers versus like designers, because we're trying to tell a story. And the best way to do that is across every single touch point that you can imagine, whether that's, Instagram, ads, outdoor, packaging, website, etc. Like they'll have to tell a real cohesive story. And that's when you build a great brand. And so that's what we love to do.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. That's awesome, man. And then the other thing on your website is your website's completely different. I feel stupid saying your website's completely different because every design studio site should be different. They shouldn't have like a cook. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to build an individual brand specific to them. Yet if you look at every agency out there, they have the same website. There's an about page, there's a portfolio, and your site doesn't have that. Your site is clearly just black and white. Here's your logo, here's the list of clients. And then when you click on them, it takes you to their website to show the brand that you're building versus here's some beautiful pictures of what we've done. And there's not even an about section. And the fact that it's called Someone and Others, is there something to the anonymity there that it's not like this is a specific team? Is it's not you? Like
there's a couple questions in there, so hopefully I answer all of them. So the first one is the name Someone and Others. And when I was coming up with it, like we wanted something anonymous. I mean, we being like myself, and then that turns into the team. But what I didn't really like about, and it's kind of like that whole like agencies are big and scary type of a world, is that like agencies put a name first. And so it's like, my first job was at Foucault and Belding, which is 3 people's names. And then you go to another agency and it's Something and Partners, Something and Associates. Law firms are, my dad's a lawyer and it's the same thing, like and Associates and Partners and Sons, etc. And it puts the name on the main person. And we didn't we didn't want that. I didn't want that. Like, the brands are what's important. It's not necessarily me that's important. It's not necessarily the rest of the team that's important. It's really important that our brands are the focus, and they're not coming to us because we have like a shop style or a shop design or like an aesthetic. It's like, when you look at our brands, you see that they are all well thought out stories, and they're all very different, and they are, every single one of them has a different design. So it's not consistent in design, which is intentional. And so that's why we did the name that way. And then the websites for your own self are always a big challenge, because you want to like show off as much as possible. Before that, we had a white page with a logo that said we're a design studio in Los Angeles, and we didn't show any of the client names. And we kind of had to start showing client names so that people could understand who we were. And honestly, for a while, if people typed in someone and others, we redirected it to our Instagram, which we also didn't post anything on our Instagram. So that wasn't really working either. But yeah, we didn't want to have a website that was like everyone else's. We don't really like to show our work, because when you are working with brands on basically like almost an in-house basis, like your work is constant. And so it's not necessarily just like, here's the website and isn't that beautiful and we're done. But it's like, that's an evolving website. The ads are evolving, the social is evolving. So it's really hard to actually show the work. And so we wanted to show the brands. We wanted it to not just be a traditional list. And so we wanted to show it in like an interesting and fun way. We wanted to have like a little Easter egg in there. So if you click on, there's like a little slider in the corner, everything goes to color, and just have like a little bit of fun. So you kind of get to see a little peek of our personality. You get to understand the brands that we've worked on. You can go look at those brands, see some of the stuff we've done for them, and get, how our personality and how our work comes across for them. And then if you're a client, if that all interests you, then you have your email at the bottom and you reach out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that it's like, careers it's just like really, you're pretty straightforward. So there's definitely that little pop of personality with the switch and the color. And then just the fact that everything is dynamic, everything's moving is just a lot of fun. You guys have recently launched Plus. So you've been part of this launch for Plus. Do you guys take ownership in any of these startups, since you're working with so many startups? How does that work?
So we do for some, and we do not for others. So we do have a partnership and an ownership in Plus. And that's an interesting thing, because and the reason we do it is because we want to show that like, it's not just another project for us. Like, we really care about it, and we want to see it grow, and we want to see the success of it. And like, the overall end goal is to have something really, really successful. It's not just another website or another packaging experience or whatever. So yes, we do partner with brands, both like on a fee as well as an equity basis, if they're open to that, because it shows that we're more committed, and we like that. And so then for something like Plus, we do have that partnership. And then also it's the same two co-founders as Starface. And so we've been working with them on Plus since the very beginning. Like, we didn't have a name, we didn't have anything. They came to us with an idea of what happens if you take water out of soap. We were like, well, let's figure it out together. That's a different arrangement and a different business than, can you build a website, or can you do a box that's going to go inside of a shipper? Like, that is, so it starts more with an idea, and like, how do you bring that idea to life, taking the creative ownership of that. So figuring out, on Plus, they want to take the water out of it. And, also plastic is like one of the biggest issues in the world, single-use plastic in the beauty industry. It's something like, and don't quote me on these numbers, but I think it's like 4 billion bottles a year are going in waste and landfill. You can only recycle certain colors of plastic. And so most of the stuff in the beauty industry is not recyclable. And also it has product inside of it when you throw it in a recycle bin, unless you can figure out how to take it apart, wash it, etc. So a lot of stuff is not recyclable. So then if you take the water out of the product, you're still a part of the problem if you don't have a package solution that still is polluting. And so, because when you take the water out, you're reducing your emissions because you're not shipping as heavy a product. But so we had to figure out, it was like, okay, well, we can't just stop at removing the water, because that's a huge important part. But at the same time, we have to remove the plastic from the equation. And how do you do that in a really interesting, fun, and engaging way that is clean, that leaves no trace, that's not your traditional eco brand, which is like Whole Foods, it's a mushroom packaging, it is cardboard, really cool stuff, great stuff for the environment, but they all look the exact same because they all have to use craft colors and they have to use like a soy-based black ink, and that stuff potentially compostable. Not everyone composts. So how do you like find the solve? You start digging. And so, I started Googling how to find basically like stuff that can disintegrate. And I stumbled upon like some fertilizer packaging that I guess you put in, I lost what I found, but like you put it into the ground. And I think because of the dirt starts eating the plastic, and then you got your fertilizer inside of your dirt, and then you water it, et cetera, and it turns into like new dirt for you. And then from that, I started searching, because that is somehow compostable or dissolvable. And then I started searching for water dissolvable packaging and stumbled upon a company that does these sachets that are made of water pulp that disappear. And I was able to order some samples and it put it in the shower and it disappeared within like 10, 15 seconds. And I was like, if we can get our soap into this and you don't have a disaster where like water leaks into the whole system, and you can have compostable outer packaging that's still super colorful, that you can compost if you have a compost, and then you have like remove the bottle with some sort of a sachet that dissolves in the shower, because you're basically using gray water that's already been on your body to dissolve the sachet. So you're essentially killing two birds with one stone, instead of like going through a whole nother recyclable process or a whole compostable process. Like you're using something that was essentially going to be that had already been used. And then if we can make that colorful and we can make it fun and branded, hopefully that's a win, because no one else is like doing something like that. So you would expect a brand like this to have the craft paper, and then they have bright colors and even more eco story than they could have had. So that was really the process when we started. Plus, it was a long one. COVID derailed us for a few months. Getting stuff produced while in COVID also derailed us. But that was sort of the short version of the packaging experience with Plus.
Yeah. Now, and before we started recording, you kind of mentioned that, when we met, it was really kind of this overblown experiential packaging with like layer upon layer and layer, on top of that. Plus is the complete opposite, right? It's a sachet that dissolves, and then inside of there is another dissolvable component, which is the soap, right? Mm-hmm. So that piece, then you've got multiple scents. You take that, you rub it in your hand with some water, and all of a sudden you get these suds, and then that's what you wash your body with.
I think
did that come first, or was that kind of part of the solution from the packaging?
Well, we knew we wanted to remove the water in the soap. So that was like, we knew it was going to be like some sort of a substance that had soap in it, that had to be activated by water. To step back, the name Plus, I don't remember the whole story of how we got the name Plus, but it was basically like, we're removing everything and then you're adding something. So you're adding water. You potentially could be adding oil at some point. You could be adding like a powder at some point. So the idea is that like we take we basically give you the essentials and then you plus something into it. And so that's really how we got to the name Plus. And then the packaging system was actually established before the product. And we really wanted to like have this idea of, you have so much waste in packaging. And like, if you look at, everyone wants to do it for like an Instagram selfie or unboxing experience. And so many people are actually getting negative comments for any sort of packaging that you have out there that's too extreme. And, you'll get packaging from bigger companies that'll send like one mascara in a huge box, because that's like the only size box they have. And so that's not even a packaging experience. That's just like an upsetting experience. When you open a box, it's, standard or big, and then you have all of this paper inside of it, and then you get to it and you have a tiny lipstick in the middle of it. So we were just trying to like think of, we ordered a bunch of stuff. You order, stuff in the same vertical, such as soap. You order stuff in, if you buy anything, and now you're like getting all these boxes, and it's just so much waste upon waste upon waste. And yeah, when we were doing this, 8-9 years ago, it like, that's what people wanted, because it showed that like we cared about the experience, and we cared about you, the customer. And now I think brands are shifting towards like, yeah, we care about you, the customer, having a good life past, whatever point. So we need to like remove some of that stuff. And honestly, whether it's a expensive premium experience or not, it's going in either the trash, recycling, or hopefully at some point compost. And so you don't need to have this crazy experience. You can have as little as possible. And we really wanted to like leave nothing. So like everything goes away and goes away quickly because, you know, with plastic, it doesn't go away quickly. Cardboard takes a while as well. Like everything takes a while. So even like our cards that go inside of the packaging are made with the same water dissolvable paper. So like you read how to use the product or like the welcome card or whatever you might call it, and then you put it in the sink and it'll disappear in like, you know, 10, 15 seconds. So yeah, we really wanted to like consciously do that first and then back a product into it that like fits into a system like that.
That's awesome, man. And, you know, kind of the goal I want to get to with talking to you as you know, we started with the over packaging of luxury cosmetics and then moving to this point with Plus where the packaging literally dissolves and disappears. You know, that's one trajectory. Starting today, and if we look, you know, 10 years out, like what's the future of packaging? You know, where are we taking this?
If finding your spec data is a wild goose chase around your office, you've got a data problem. SpecRite is the only cloud-based management and specification solution that every brand needs. Because if you don't spec right, you'll spec wrong.
I think like the way we did Plus and design Plus was that it was very future thinking. And so this is not going to be what every brand is doing in 5 or 10 years, but maybe in 20 years where like everything will go away. And like, we didn't want to follow a trend. We wanted to really like lead on that trend and like get people thinking, because doing a whole system like this is not necessarily possible for every brand, but it'll get them to start thinking because they'll be like, oh, wow, this brand has compostable outer packaging. So let me look at compostable outer packaging, or this brand has something that can dissolve quickly. And so maybe we can have our stuff dissolve quickly. So I think the future of packaging is really in like less is more for sure. And the challenge on less is more is like how to keep it branded. And so finding like sustainable eco solution that still remain branded, but in a simpler form, because I don't think a box makes you famous on Instagram anymore. And like, you know, maybe you'll want to show the product. I don't think the boxing experience is really like a hugely necessary experience anymore, but I think the product itself is an important one. So I think people will just continually pare it down because like I think when e-commerce started and when luxury e-commerce started, like it was like, oh no, like they're not going to be coming into Chanel. They're not going to be coming into Hermes. Like they have to like bring the store to you. But I think that those same people are like, I don't need that. Like I'm getting the purse either way. Like that's not a convincing form of me getting the purse. And it's kind of a headache for me now because like I'm starting to feel bad if I don't do the right thing with the package. So like if it's supposed to be recycled, but I don't have enough space in my recycling bin, I feel bad. Or like, I'm not keeping this box, I feel bad. And so like, I think like the feeling that you want to have is like, I feel good about what happens to it at the end. And I feel good about the product. And like, I think more people are worried more, especially with like the rise of Amazon, like people are more concerned about like the product arriving undamaged and like, then I'm good. And so I think packaging will like follow that in general, you know. I want to feel good about my packaging. I think that's where it's going to go compared to like, I don't want to feel bad about it. I don't want to feel like I'm doing something bad for the world. So is it all going to disappear? I don't think so. But whatever happens to it, I at least feel good about my part of it and my part of it with the world.
Yeah. I mean, one thing for sure is, you know, if I put on my consumer hat, like there's almost like a level of being overwhelmed at this point with packaging. You know, I open my door and there's a box, there's an envelope, you know, that's just the way that we live today is, you know, we're ordering a lot. And by the end of the week, you're like, holy crap, I can't believe I ordered this much stuff. And you're right. It's like, I didn't go into the store because I don't need that experience anymore. It's more about convenience. And I think the more packaging we're talking about that the brands are using for e-com, the more pressure you're putting on that consumer, you know, just individually, you're applying this new responsibility of you have to take this product, you've got to recycle it. You've got to, you know, if it's like a plastic flexible film envelope or whatever, you've got to drive it to the store in order for it to be recycled. And it's like, at this point, we've got so much pressure coming at us from every possible angle. we don't need one more component to add stress to our lives, which is now you're responsible for this baby. You're responsible for this product and you've got to recycle it. So, I mean, the idea of Plus dissolving, and, interestingly enough, there was like a lot of detergents, like laundry detergents that were doing, eliminating water and trying to condense the packaging. Tide came out with like a cardboard box that had a bladder full of this juice, that you put on. And like personally, like one of the things that I use is I use these strips. I don't know if you've seen these strips. So like this is a load of laundry right here.
Yeah, that's basically the same process as Plus.
And it's just, it seems like more products should be going in that direction, right? Where instead of having like a gigantic product, pump bottle of soap in the shower, it's like this Plus makes sense. Instead of having a gigantic squeeze bottle of Tide, like these things make sense. It's like, where else can we apply these? And not just does it solve for the product, but then obviously the packaging comes down. And then the fact that you've got this dissolvable plastic or this dissolvable sachet for Plus, it gives the consumer, it almost like lifts that responsibility from them. I don't have this single use pack that I've got that I know won't get recycled. I've got this thing that just dissolves and it becomes part of the ritual for bathing. So how do you, just the fact that you've incorporated packaging into that ritual is completely, like you said, you're thinking forward 10 years and possibly seeing people start applying this in 20. What else are you seeing out there that is new and has potential to go beyond just like a niche brand today to become mass market in the future?
That's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer to that. I mean, like, it's interesting, like when you walk into Target and like you just see all of this stuff, or Walmart or CVS, like you just see all this stuff and like it's not recyclable, which is like, I don't think I think people are going to try and remove the bottle. Like, I think that's probably the next thing. And like, they'll put it in paper or like a paper lined with something that can, potentially be recycled. But I don't think that that's necessarily the solution, because you're just replacing like one unrecyclable thing with another unrecyclable thing.
Right.
So I think that's like a short-term solution. Everyone will be like, okay, the Tide Pods will go inside of a recyclable box, and then the Tide liquid will go inside of a plastic lined box. And then we can recycle if you wash out the box, you can recycle it, etc. But that's still putting a lot on the consumer, and that's putting a lot on like education on the consumer and a lot of consumers to do it for it to be effective. So I think that that's probably like a middle term, is like, okay, well, we're realizing how bad plastic is. Is there like a midterm substitute? But then I think it's really about like looking at it from the consumer's perspective rather than the brand's perspective. And like, how do we make this more convenient, more easy, and better for the consumer's world that they're living in? I think that's what the future is, because eventually I'm not going to feel great about the cardboard solution or like whatever the next solution is. And like, I think it's like a successful brand is going to make their consumer feel good about whatever's happening. And I think whoever can come up with all of the right solves for that, or the multiple brands who come up with different solves that then leads to like a path of that solve, is where people are going to go, because people felt good about a luxury experience 5-10 years ago. Now they don't feel good about that. And so now it's finding like what makes them feel good. So I think it's really about successful brands finding successful solutions that make people feel good.
100%, right? I think it's, I did an unboxing of some Bulgari products, and it was like, layer upon layer of board. It was the same stuff that we were doing 10 years ago, right? Where it was just like endless layers, and then you got big box and then a tiny product. Again, it's like, how do you synthesize that luxury experience into just a really condensed version that once you're done with it, it goes away. And I think when you're talking about luxury, people think, I have the conversation almost every day. Well, we want our packaging to be so beautiful that it's a keepsake. And, my response is always, on a long enough timeline, everything goes in the trash. It doesn't matter, whether, I've held on to this Apple box my whole life. When I die, my kids aren't going to want to keep that. They're not going to cherish that. I probably didn't throw it away because I just got, put in a box and it got in an attic somewhere and it's just sitting there. So it's going to end up in the trash. So making sure that you're designing for that, or for it to just go away. So besides like this sachet and, the stuff that you've done for Starface, since the owners of Plus are owners of Starface, will you start seeing some of this technology being applied into some of the other brands that they're doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think like there is definitely more of this that's going to happen. I think like step one is refillable solution, especially in the beauty and like cosmetic industry, is refillable solutions. I think that's like what's going to happen first, because it's like, I don't need the pump every single time. I can take the pump out and put it in the next thing, or I can just like take something that is a little bit more environmentally friendly, empty that into whatever my, single use plastic, which is now multiple use plastic, can sit in. And then, so that's like an early solution. And then you develop how to like remove the single use plastic or refillable plastic piece into something else. And like, I think, we kind of rely on technologies of others and other industries to find the solution of that, because, and this is like how I've used my design aesthetic my whole career. Like, I don't only look at inspiration from like, for beauty brands, I don't look at inspiration from beauty brands. Like, I'll look at inspiration from streetwear, and I'll look at inspiration from architecture. And then you're able to bring those things into your design. And so I think that that's similar. Like, we have to look at, it's not just going to the same box manufacturer or the same plastic bottle manufacturer. Like, you start looking at other ones. And so, that's how we stumbled upon water dissolvable sachet for Plus. And, that's not the only solution. And I don't think that should be the only solution, but we kind of have to like we have to do more research to like find other things, but then also to other industries will start building them for certain things. And then you'll like stumble upon it and you'll start using it for yours. Like, I think that will really help with these solutions, because people are constantly thinking about this stuff. They're just not thinking about, this is perfect for a soap bottle. And so like, who knows, maybe there's something in the auto industry that you'll be like, this is perfect for this, like we can use that for a soap bottle, or we can like use that same manufacturing process for this or that. And I think that that's it. And I think what you were talking about earlier about the experience of unboxing, I think it's also a little bit on influencers to make that change as well, because like they're the ones that are getting sent all of the boxes and they're taking pictures of them. And so then people are wanting that as well. But if they start only taking pictures of the final product and not the boxes, then there won't be the need for the boxes or the more elaborate boxes, because at the end of the day, it's the product that you want to be showcasing anyway. And so if they start only showcasing that, which I think that trend has started, then you can, and especially like during COVID, I think that started because like, everyone was ordering online. And so you would get 20 boxes a day and you're just like, I can't handle this anymore. And like, imagine if you had to take pictures of all of those every single day, it just gets to be too much. And so I think that's their job as, that's their career. They are like endorsing these products. And so I think if they start moving toward endorsing just the product rather than the experience of receiving the product, that'll also help the system as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Just because I try to focus on sustainable packaging as much as possible and bringing the brand into something that's more sustainable, always looking at new brands out there and new products as well. There's a company out there called Ace of Air. I'm not sure if you've seen those guys.
Yeah, I do think I know them.
Yeah. So, again, another brand that's doing something completely different with basically you're renting the packaging, right? You buy the product, but you're renting the packaging. You've got to return it. You got a window of time to return it. Otherwise you pay like $80 for the packaging. Interesting, not like a perfect solution, but again, it's like just moving us in a new direction. There's a company out there called Not PLA. Those guys are out of London, and it's a seaweed based gel, and they fill it with liquid. They can fill it with alcohol. They can fill it with like products. You can eat it, and then there's no packaging.
This site looks very familiar, so I think this stumbled upon my research in Plus. Yeah,
there's just like so much stuff out there, and I think for a packaging designer, anybody that's out there developing packaging, instead of looking at just the same old stuff, going through the same old Pinterest thing and looking at luxury packaging or retail packaging, again, like you said, go out there and see what's new in automotive, what's new in fashion and architecture, right? Like how are some of the products being shipped in architecture? How are some of the products in interior design being moved? What are the materials that they're using? Food has a ton of innovation, not food packaging, but the foods themselves. And find inspiration to figure out what the next big thing is going to be. But I think what you guys have hit on here with this dissolvable packaging is definitely something that we're going to see as a trend moving forward. I'd love to see this now being just part of what you apply to all of your brands and beat everybody else to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the challenge is definitely, especially when you come out with something like this, you kind of have to like continue. Like you can't just be like, okay, well, we'll go back to single-use plastic on the next one. So obviously the next one, I think Plus will always be defined as like the forefront or like the forerunner on it. How can we move in those same footsteps moving forward to make all of the right decisions so that so it leads the way, that we all learn from those types of things, and then we slowly try and get to that on a mass level. That's when the story gets really interesting, because then you've got a mass brand that's doing like mass things, and all of their competitors are going to follow. So I think it's the challenge is to get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just reminded me of when I lived in Japan, there was this candy that I would buy it came in a little cardboard box, and there was like individual candies in there, and each candy was individually wrapped, but it was like wrapped in a rice paper, and you just took the whole candy and the wrapper and just shove it in your mouth. Mm-hmm. And just like the wrapper dissolves, and then you just eat it. And there's just so many opportunities to do, again, like just inspiration from these different places. So
yeah, I also recommend for everyone out there to travel, because we get inspiration everywhere. So Starface, super inspired by Japan, and I actually bought a bunch of cosmetics in Japan. Then you start playing around with compact, and you see that the makeup is just in a tray inside of a compact. And so what if you remove the tray, then you can put the stars inside of there. So we get a lot of inspiration from all over. So traveling has been, I didn't travel a lot early in my career when I was younger, and now I try and travel a lot, because you get so much different inspiration, and you see how different countries are handling things. Japan recycles so differently than here. New York recycles so differently than LA. Everything is just so vast and so different that it's you sometimes have to get out of your own little bubble and see how somewhere else does something, and you can learn a lot from that.
Everybody's concerned about sustainability today. What if I told you can take your pouches, labels, your single serve wrappers, and make them completely dissolve, make them completely disappear in water? That's what the team at SmartSolve has done. They've got a paper that is certified flushable. You can actually take the packaging, put it in the sink, put it in the shower, put it in the toilet, flush it. It dissolves completely into fibers. Learn more about SmartSolve. Go to smartsolve.com and ask for samples. Now let's get back to the show.
Absolutely, man. And if somebody's out there that wants to work with someone and others, who's the perfect client for you?
We like to work with people who want to tell a cool branded story, and that want to have a unique point of view on something. And that, I don't like using the word disruptor, but kind of someone who's wanting to challenge the status quo a little bit or a lot of it, either someone like Starface, where it's normalizing acne, which for, my generation, the generation before me, you hide when you get a pimple. Whereas we were trying to make it where you go and you celebrate it, you wear it out, and you enjoy those types of things. Cause I remember my experiences with pimples, and they were not the same as Gen Z's experiences. Gen Z is how big can my pimple get so I can show it off on TikTok? Whereas I'm how long do I have to stay in my room until it goes away? And so a brand like that, a brand like Plus, where it's challenging the norm of the shower experience and of the packaging. Brands like Oakley, which is our sparkling water company that we work with, that are challenging the norms of what soda is, because they have all soda flavors in stores now, and it's a healthy drink that really, because it's just water, it tricks your mind to think that you're drinking Coke or cherry cola or something like that. And that's an interesting experience. And so we really just like brands that are not cookie cutter, that aren't going to be the same. Nugs is another one that we enjoyed working with, that was changing what vegan is, or what vegan chicken nugget is. And so we love those types of brands that are fun, really direct to consumer, because they get to that's where you get to communicate with the customer and build a community the most. Those are the types of brands we love to work with.
That's awesome. And when you're talking, DTC brands, I guess you're right. You're right. You're not talking through a filter of the retail store or the experience on shelf and that competition. You get the opportunity to have a dialogue with them online through social and continue that conversation in the pack. I hadn't really thought about that in terms of work in D2C and how that allows you to communicate directly with the consumer. So that's great. And then you're right. I remember getting a zit and you're crap, get the Clearasil out and cover it up. And you're, you're right now. It's a challenge is who can get the biggest zit. So that's awesome, man. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best place for them to reach you?
Either contact us at Someone and Others, or you can follow us or DM us at Someone and Others. I try and check all of our DMs as often as possible. But yeah, those are the places to get in touch with us. And hopefully we'll be updating we'll never update our site with actual work, at least on this version of the site, but our goal is to continually, hopefully, update Instagram. And we actually wanted to do something weird on Instagram and not have a feed and just do the stories archive story stuff, so that it's almost like a portfolio of our work in that way.
Cool, man. And before I get to asking what you guys are working on, is your team, do you have an established team now? Do you actually have
so we have grown pretty big. So it was pretty big for where we were. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we were about 3 people. And now we are like 11, I think. So some major growth during the pandemic, which is scary, and also an interesting time for growth because most of our team has never met each other in person. So we don't know how tall people are. We don't know like anything above the shoulders, which is interesting. And our team is also predominantly LA, New York, but we have people all over the country now. So we have someone in Oklahoma, we have someone in Pennsylvania, then we have a few in New York, a few here. And we've grown to basically, when you're full service, you got to have a lot of different things that you provide. So all of the different creative needs. And then we also have a Rolodex of, specialists that we work with when we need to bring someone in for something. And then we also have project managers, dev team, marketing, et cetera. So we've turned ourselves into, 3 years ago it was me, and now it's a whole bunch of us.
Awesome, man. Congratulations, dude. And the work you guys are doing is show-stopping stuff. And it looks like you're building these brands into actually profitable companies with great followings, which is what we all aspire to do. It's great to create cool packaging, but if it doesn't build a business, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's a fun challenge to have, obviously.
Yeah, man. Well, Dan, man, thanks so much. I appreciate you being on here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. It was great chatting with you.